2026 Rivians are on their way. Within the coming weeks or months, we will see the first 2026 Rivians on the road, and this will finally bring the Gen 2 quad. Now, when it comes to charging and range and just overall performance, we're not expecting much of a power change from the 2025 Rivian. So if that's something you're looking forward to, no, these 2026 Rivians are not getting 800 volts. Our charging is not likely to see a huge improvement, maybe some smaller efficiency gains. But for the most part, this is the same powertrain that we're seeing for the dual motor and the tri-motor 2025 Gen 2 R1s. But 2026 does bring the quad, which will be their 2.5, 2.6 second beast. Yeah, I have my own gripes with the quad motor, that being that I think the tri-motor just makes much more sense. The quad motor is going to be like $10,000 to $15,000 more, and you're really only getting like a 0.3, 0.4 second faster 0 to 60, and you might get some other color, paint, and wheel options with the quads. Other than that, the tri-motor is honestly just the best deal that you can get when it comes to Rivian, which kind of makes sense in their lineup. It seems like they're trying to make the tri the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone that people are going to want to pick. Now, the biggest introduction on these 2026 Rivians has got to be the North American charging standard. Now, unfortunately, and this is my gripe with the North American charging standard, the North American charging standard on Rivians is still staying in the front left, the driver's side of the vehicle. So the charge port location is not changing, meaning when you pull up to a Tesla supercharger, you are still going to have to take up 2 spots. Really, this port is just an adapter that's embedded into where the CCS1 port usually was. Okay, you're still gonna get plug and charge, but current Rivians already are able to support that with adapters. You can still use membership pricing, but you're gonna have to go through the app. Again, you're taking up 2 spots, you're gonna have to pull in forward, right? The introduction of the North American charging standard is good. We like to see automakers switching to NACS, but I do still feel that it is a bit prematurely. With that being said, I know that's gonna make a lot of people happy because not everyone wants to deal with adapters. And so with this, you won't have to deal with an adapter. North American charging standard, J3400, plug right in. Now, these 2026 Rivians are really a glimpse into what we're going to be getting on the R2, at least just a little bit, all right? We're not gonna be getting 800 volts on the R2, but with the quads, Rivian is introducing their new paint shop. This is part of their R2 general assembly that they're introducing. This new paint shop is gonna allow Rivian to introduce more colors and introduce just more efficient painting without having to stop production. Paint was a bottleneck when it came to R1s rolling off the line. If the paint shop stopped, that means other parts of production had to stop. But with this new paint shop, which isn't connected to the production line directly, you're able to still produce vehicles, the bodies, stamping, and then paint the vehicle afterwards, so it's not directly connected. With that being said, right, more paint options, and so this kind of gives us an idea of what we're gonna be seeing for R2. Of course, as I've mentioned, 400 volts, that's the same thing we're going to be seeing for R2. But with 2026, the actual year around the corner, this is when we're going to see R2, and that makes me very, very excited. Now, there are some unconfirmed things about the 2026 Rivians that I am on the lookout for, particularly the scroll wheels that we see in the 2026 Rivian R2. Those are expected to have Rivian's new scroll wheels. And so these giant dials that have haptic feedback that of course allow you to change music, right? Adjust speed and distance when it comes to Driver Plus and some of those autonomous features. But the scroll wheels actually feel really good, and you can control them from the rear of the wheel or from the front. You can push them left and right, scroll up and down. I think they're push in and out. They're really cool. Scroll wheels. And so hopefully those do get added to the 2026 Gen 2 Rivian R1s, because the 2026 Rivian R2s are expected to have them. So it'd be kind of funny if the cheaper vehicle gets these scroll wheels and the more expensive vehicle doesn't. Particularly when the scroll wheels, at least for those who've experienced it, myself, I think they are better, but we will see. It's also expected that Rivian will introduce a better infotainment chip, just making sure that the next model year vehicle is just a little bit better than the last. That's nothing uncommon with automakers, right? Bringing a new model year, but what's even more common is pricing. Every single Rivian model trim is seeing a $1,000 increase in pricing, which isn't too surprising. Again, automakers often new model year. Rivian's trying to ensure that their vehicles are profitable. And so if increasing the price works out for them, just $1,000, then they're able to do that. And of course, the conversation of Rivians are leased. And if the $7,500 tax credit goes away, that means less Rivians are going to be sold because less Rivians are going to be leased. And so we will see what really the future for the 2026 Rivians are. But I think this $1,000 price increase really isn't as much of a big issue as things like tariffs, right? The $1,000 price increase is probably battling that, but tariffs, if those could increase anymore, and as well as that $7,500 tax credit for leasing going away. I've also heard rumors that Rivian could be getting rid of the LFP standard battery pack, the entry battery pack for the dual standard R1T and R1S, which funny enough has the best charging curve. And it's the Rivian that, if you are going to be road tripping a lot, probably might do you just well. But that LFP pack is made in China, and with tariffs, maybe that battery pack goes away and we could see the introduction of the Standard Plus again. The Standard Plus battery pack is a large pack and they just software lock it. Other companies have done this in the past, just software locking batteries. Rivian still has to pay for a large pack. They're just making you pay a smaller price for a standard pack. And so is that the route that companies, particularly Rivian, wants to go? Either way, it is possible that the standard battery pack is on the chopping block. The last thing that I'm hoping Rivian introduces, at least with a software update, something, okay? Vehicle to X, vehicle to home, right? Vehicle to grid. It's kind of ridiculous that, of course, there are NEMA, 115 outlet. What the fuck are they called? 1450. Of course, Rivians already have like a NEMA 515 or, your typical household outlet, 110, 120 volt outlet on it. You don't get 220, 240, 40 amp outlets like you do see on the Ford Lightning and the Cybertruck and more. And I don't think they're gonna add this here as well, but vehicle to X would be great. It is something that Rivian has said that all Rivians on the road are capable of, but they just haven't unlocked it through software. What is the bottleneck there? What's causing them to not want to release that? Not sure. Maybe they see some sort of issue with high voltage or the onboard charger that they just don't want to awaken or mess up. But yeah, vehicle to X would be great. And the fact that we haven't seen that yet on Rivians is kind of ridiculous. I mean, 140 kilowatt hour battery, 100 kilowatt hour battery, 90 kilowatt hour battery, 135 kilowatt hour battery, depending on what trim you get. But these giant batteries, and you don't get to use them, fully utilize them like you would, on the Ford Lightning or the Tesla Cybertruck or the Silverado. It's kind of annoying. Using vehicle to load through the charge port, I think that would actually be kind of cool as well. Point being, this is not going to be a gigantic Rivian update model year change. It's going to be pretty standard, but I think for the year of 2027 and 2028, we may have some big surprises or major changes when it comes to R1. But with R2 just around the corner, I think Rivian is really trying to focus a lot of their resources and assets and, their workforce towards R2. They're going to be producing 150,000 of those in their Normal, Illinois factory, and that's with their 3 shifts maxed out, but thousands of these initially through their first shift in 2026, the first half of 2026. And there's a lot that's going to go into this, and so I imagine that they're trying to save, some things for R2, if that makes sense. But yeah, let me know what you guys would want to see for the Gen 2 2026 R1s in the future. We've already gotten EPA range numbers. Again, not much of a change, but we do know that the Quad is coming out and the North American Charging Standard Rivians are coming. Those have been confirmed, as well as that $1,000 price increase for all of the trims. But other than that, I want to know what you guys would want in 2026 Rivians. My name is Isaiah. This is Out of Spec Bits, and I'll see you guys in the next one.